what is the most important thing when there's a change in the industry, in the SEO industry? Well, you have to look at what the data is telling you.
Hello, everyone. I'm BJ Bergey, COO of One SEO, and joined with me today is Kyle Byers. Kyle, what brings you to the show today?
Hey, how's it going? Well, it's great to be here on this show. I think we're going to talk about how things are going with Semrush, which is where I work. And yeah, I'm just excited to share.
Awesome. Super excited to hear it. So talk to me about your role at Semrush.
Sure. So I'm the director of organic search at Semrush, and I oversee the global growth teams for SEO, organic content and editorial, conversion rate optimization, and international blogs, as well as the most popular email newsletter for Semrush. A couple of our main KPIs are organic search traffic and MRR. So there's a lot of SEO happening there, but as you can tell from what I just described, also we're working on a lot of things just beyond just organic search.
Awesome. So I'm super excited to dig into all of that as much as you're willing to share. But you did mention globally. So, Semrush provides services and is the go-to tool for a lot of global, businesses and professionals in the field. From your perspective, what unique value does Semrush bring to the table that its competition doesn't?
Sure. Yeah, great question. I'm biased, of course, but I've used a lot of SEO tools. Yeah, just to admit it. But I have used a lot of SEO tools in my career as a user and as a customer. And Semrush has, in my opinion, the best mix of, power, ease of use, and just tons and tons of features. The first time I used Semrush was over a decade ago now. So I know there was a time back then when there were a lot more pros and cons to using Semrush in particular. But now they have industry-leading databases in terms of links as well as keywords, and they have one of the best SEO audit tools out there. They have, of course, the famous keyword magic tool that everyone loves, and more. So there's just a lot that Semrush offers, and it's hard to find so many great features and powerful databases in a single place anywhere else. I can also speak to a couple of my favorite features that are newer if you want. That was
Absolutely.
I would say the SERP features. One of my favorite new things that we introduced just in the last few months was being able to see SERP features broken out separately from natural search results. So you can see in a different tab if you want to look at what SERP features are showing up, featured snippets, people also ask, etc., separate from just the natural results. You can do that now, which is not something you can find in most tools. We also recently released some pretty big improvements to our authority score, which make it just much more reliable in terms of measuring the actual ranking power of a given web page or domain.
Awesome. So you hit a lot of notes there on the obviously organic side of it. But what would you say from your perspective and your years of experience now that businesses are facing when it comes to organic, and what does Semrush bring to the table that helps alleviate that?
Sure. As you mentioned, I've been in the industry for quite some time. I've been working in marketing in general for about 15 years now, including about 8 years running my own marketing agency. So I can tell you something that the vast majority of business owners share is they actually just don't see how big of an opportunity organic search is in general. I'm sure you're familiar with this problem, BJ. So one of the best things about Semrush is that it makes it pretty easy to use. It is pretty easy to use, even though it's also very powerful. And so that makes it pretty easy for a business owner or a one-person marketing team to just jump in and see exactly what pages and keywords their competitors are getting traffic from, so that they can see how big the opportunity might be for themselves really quickly. And then they can use that information to build their own initial SEO or PPC strategy. And then they can also, of course, from there, just continue working their way through our tool set. So, for example, they can run a site audit to quickly find all the low-hanging fruit that might be preventing their pages from ranking on Google. We also have features for basically every step in an SEO workflow. So there's keyword and competitive research, which I just mentioned, content creation. Also, we have tools around that, on-page and technical SEO, link building, local SEO, and then plus things even outside of SEO. So social media management and market research and PPC tools. So having all that available in just one package is something that makes Semrush really unique, and it's one of our biggest selling points.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's super powerful package altogether. I can say, I've been using it for the last 10 years and I've grown with it,
Right.
whether it be on the organic side or the competitive side. But I think the competitive side is a big piece of it. A lot of business owners always have a want, but never want to realize what's in front of them. So it's like, hey, I want to be here. Let me go do it. Well, your competition actually sets the bar for that. So, let's dive into the competition, audit it, see what the playing field looks like, and then move on from there. And Semrush brings a lot of that to the table.
Absolutely, man. It's when it comes to something a lot of customers of agencies, as like to see is case studies, right? And those can really help sell them on the services you offer. But in some ways, there's no better case study than pointing to their competitors and saying, hey, look what your competitors are achieving. They know their space. They know their competitors. Often there's an emotional drive there to do battle and overcome and win customers. And so being able to use a tool like this to show them, hey, look how much they're winning with this strategy that you could use too, it can be very, very powerful.
Yep. My favorite is sitting there in a discovery meeting and, a prospect goes, well, why do I need this? We bring up their competition doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, absolutely not. I will do it.
It's like magic. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, having been in the industry, I'm no stranger to Google algorithmic changes, whether named updates or just little shadow updates and everything in between. How does Semrush stay on top of all this?
Great question. So, we have a lot of people within the company who are very passionate about SEO, both from a professional level and also just from a personal level, having spent a lot of years in the industry. So one of the things that we have developed, I believe Semrush actually developed internally first and then made public, is the Semrush sensor. So this is a free tool that we have that's kind of the industry standard for seeing the impact of different Google algorithm updates over time. And it charts out the volatility in the SERPs based on, location, industry, and more. And so anyone can see that. They can check it out at just semrush.com/sensor. And that gives you a very real-time view into how things are changing in the SERPs over time. Internally, tool, as I mentioned, we have a lot of people who are paying very close attention, both to this tool as well as to all of Google's announcements and thinking about what might be coming up next that isn't actually announced yet. Plus, we're conducting studies to see the impacts of these changes and using that to inform our development also. And we're paying, as always, we're paying close attention to what our users are doing in our tools, what feedback that they're giving us privately through our tools. We have a lot of prompts asking for feedback, and there's a reason for that. It helps us with developing the product. And then we, do social listening to understand what users are saying about our product as well as our competitors' products. And we just factor all that into our product development pipeline to make the tools as good as they can be.
Gotcha. I will say, one of the quick at-a-glance benefits to Semrush, especially when you load into your dashboard or you're searching a domain, is the ability to see correlated Google updates with traffic spikes or drops on a dime notice, because it allows you to make decisions quicker. So it's been super beneficial to us and our clients because, hey, the sky fell out of nowhere today. We can attribute it to something and figure out what we need to most read content, right? Awesome. So you mentioned staying abreast of the industry, what is happening in the world around us. And, hot ticket items are automation, AI, search, which is, now years in the making. How does Semrush stay on top of all of this, and what are you guys doing to stay with it? Because automation, AI have been thrown around so much, right? It's the end of the world, and it's also a new dawn, a new tool for power users. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm so excited by what's happening in AI right now. It's really an exciting time. I think we've seen in SEO two things. It's interesting. We've seen a lot of change over time, but we've also seen many occasions of people believing there was going to be a huge change that would completely destroy or completely overhaul the industry that didn't really pan out that way. So a couple of examples of the latter category would be voice search. How many people believed voice search was going to be either the end of SEO or it was going to take a huge proportion of the number of searches. Didn't really pan out that way, right? Similar for mobile apps. Mobile apps are a huge part of our lives now versus a decade and a half ago, but people still go to the Google app. They still search online. It's not like websites are dead or searches are dead. So that's something that I like to point out as context as we think about how AI might shape our industry over time. It's also the case.
I'll interject with this. Back when the internet was booming, right? The news would say, is it a passing fad? Is this going to stick, right? And here we are today. So, there's a lot of what ifs, and I think some of it we take for granted, right? There's been AI in our phones for years. It's just been so...
And on Google for years too, yeah.
So I think the big players like Google, like Bing of the world, when they make decisions on it with Bard or what happens or doesn't happen, that's when we start to see, people flocking to it. So I completely agree with you on that.
For sure. And then there are also things where you can see that the industry has really shifted over time, not even necessarily just from technology, but just general evolving. So practices. So for example, you might think about link building today versus 10 years ago. 10 years ago or 12 years ago, guest posting was all the rage, right? Private blog networks are still used today, but they're not really so effective as they were 10 or 12 years ago. Now, digital PR is kind of all the rage, and that seems to be much more effective for link building than guest posting is, for example. So that's another way to think about, how these things can change over time. I do think that AI is probably the biggest change we've seen in a while, generative AI. As we mentioned, AI has been behind the scenes for quite some time, but it is, I think, going to lead to a pretty big change in SEO, and it's not super clear what the effects are going to be yet. For example, Bing might get a much larger market share than it's had in the past because of the Bing chat, right? Google's obviously experimenting with search generative experience, which, BJ, I'm sure you've tried out, but anyone who's listening who hasn't tried Google SGE, I highly recommend signing up for the beta there and checking it out. To me, it's kind of like a supercharged version of featured snippets. And featured snippets were another thing where, when they first came out, many people thought, is this the end of SEO? And for a minute there, it seemed like it was going to be a real big sea change. But it turned out to just be kind of the new number one position. It's not that huge of a difference. And I suspect that we might be headed for something similar when it comes to AI within search engines. Maybe it's just a new factor to optimize for, getting into those citations within the AI results. So it is a very exciting time, but it's just a little bit unclear exactly what's going to happen there. I would also just continue with that thread of thinking, what is the most important thing when there's a change in the industry, in the SEO industry? Well, you have to look at what the data is telling you. Our guts are based on what we've seen in the past. You and I were just talking about the things we've seen in the past. As humans, we want to spot these patterns and use them to guess what might happen in the future. But the really best way to do that is to use the data as our guide and see what's truly happening. And I just have to say, I think Semrush is the best tool out there for showing you loads of data in a very easy to understand way. So you can see not just how your own website might be affected by these changes, but also your competitors and companies in adjacent industries that can have an effect on yours. And then you can also zoom in to specific keywords in specific locations or specific web pages or whatever you'd like to see. So, changes in the SEO world never affect every industry or every type of keyword or every SERP in the exact same way. So looking at those differences between those different industries, keywords, SERPs can give you some pretty good insights too. And then the last thing I'd say on this is that we also have Semrush set up so that depending on your level of commitment to the SEO world, you can set it to a bigger or lesser degree of autopilot, basically. We have a lot of reports that you can set up that will trigger on a regular basis to show you how your performance is changing, for example. We have a lot of power users, but we also have people who, might only do SEO as a small part of their job. And so those people can set up weekly reports to get emailed to them with changes so they don't have to remember to check back in proactively, and they get flashing alarm bells if something might be going wrong or right at any given moment.
Yeah, and I'll say this. Semrush does a great job of digging into things you wouldn't otherwise dig into, and presenting you with the ability to do so. I'm entitled to my opinion. I don't know if your, hands are tied, but
Thanks for saying that. I agree.
GA4 is one of those things that's like, hey, I like the initiative, but you shocked what people knew, and you made it hard for new people to kind of learn. And I think we're going to see that evolve over time. So when you have power tools such as Semrush and the ability to dig in deeper for what matters to you and you specifically, it's not just a tracking game anymore. It's, competitive playing field. It's, it's trend research. It's everything in between. So that's awesome. Now, you did mention several times there, or alluded to, the beta test of the new SERPs and with the generative at the top. I think it's great because I understand what it's doing, but also in the industry, right? If I pull it up on the phone, no matter how big it is, it takes over most of the screen as soon as I, expand the thing. And it's like, okay, well, it's assuming it understands what I'm looking for. And sometimes that's taking an action, and sometimes it's informative, and sometimes it doesn't get it right. And that's okay. That tells us that, hey, we're not there yet. But my favorite thing, and kind of a sidebar, I love that they're throwing beta on the tail end of everything. Bard, a test by Google, right? Because it just covers their butt in case, things go south. But content it seems to be at the core of all this. Now, whether super advanced with the natural language processing aspect of it, or, just writing pure, genuine, good content seems to come back to SEO so much over the years, and even more so now than ever, because there's new opportunity every which way. What is Semrush take on content, and how much focus, end users should be putting into their content?
Semrush, I think this is another place where we put a little more emphasis on content than most SEO tools do. You have tools that are really focused on content, and you have tools that are really focused on technical and on-page SEO. And often there's not a lot of overlap there, actually, or, keyword research with link building alongside content. It's just not something you see that commonly. So I think that's something that Semrush does that's, again, somewhat unique in the industry. We have, for example, we have the SEO writing assistant. This can help you draft or rephrase and rewrite content using generative AI. And it's also a great way to, it gives you feedback. It helps grade your content drafts based on originality and readability and keyword usage and so on. So you can make sure a tool like this can help you understand if your audience is going to like it, if Google's going to like it, if it's in-depth enough. It also provides feedback on what the competitive ranking pages are doing in terms of, word count and things like that, to make sure that you're on the right track. So that's one of the features that we have that really helps with content creation and refining. We also have an app that we released recently called Content Shake. That's a more fully featured AI content generator. And it can come up with ideas for content based on just the topic that you provide. And then it can write about those topics for you. And it even puts you on a track for giving you additional ideas over time, week by week. And then you can have it write the content for you straight from there. So really helping to streamline the process of getting pretty dang solid content created that can be just published or edited and published and done with as you like.
Nice. Yeah, I think the big benefit here is, you mentioned it before, whether you're a power user or this is your first go at anything with your website, the ability to recognize that your website is your 24/7 salesperson, right? So it's your gateway to business. And, those that are capitalizing on the tools that are around them, are going to fall to the wayside, because those who take advantage of, partnering with Semrush, moving forward with the product and stuff like that, you're going to be able to see a lot more that give you leverage over your competition and also paint a path forward for you. So that's very cool.
For sure.
Now, you did mention it earlier. Semrush is an internationally used tool. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you cater to different languages and different geographies as far as research?
Sure. Localization is so important. Not that it applies to everyone. A local business, a local barbershop, or a hardware shop isn't probably going to need to localize into many different languages. Although in some cases, depending on the neighborhood and the city, it could be a good idea even for a local business to localize some of their content. But SaaS businesses, agencies, information product businesses, DTC, any business that sells internationally can definitely benefit from localizing their website or their content into different languages, and that's great because most of the time, languages aside from English are much less competitive. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there if you're able to sell internationally, to also start marketing internationally when it comes to organic search. And so when it comes to Semrush, we take an approach that's essentially based on how Google does. Google has different indexes for different locations. And so Semrush also maintains over 120 different databases with data for those different locations. So if you want to bring in more traffic from the UK or from France or Serbia or Mexico, or pretty much wherever you want, we've got you covered. And you can use Semrush data to help decide which of those locations you might want to expand your business to next, because you can see what's ranking in those locations and languages. You can see what keywords are harder or easier to rank for versus in other languages, and make your strategic decisions that way.
Very cool. Very cool. Kyle, I do have to come clean. It's been 10 years as of actually 2 weeks ago that I've been with One SEO.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I've been calling it Semrush this entire time. I'm not sure that even after this interview that it's going to change. That's just something that I've done. And I've willed it upon my team. So unfortunately, you will.
Very common. Yeah. I think until just like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was a totally fair thing to do. Even our logo, I believe, was, had the SEM as all caps, just like SEM, right? It was only about a year and a half, 2 years ago that they changed it to uppercase S and then lowercase em. So yeah, no harm, no foul there. I think that's fair, BJ.
I will make sure all of our staff and clients understand that moving forward. All right. So final roar. Semrush, I just did it again.
Semrush, quite all right. I do it sometimes too.
Is a phenomenal platform that gives you more information than you could ever imagine when it comes to being competitive online. There has been so many advancements over the years, and I got to live those. I got to see where it came from, what's been brought to the table. And there are things that at first glance, it may be a lot for some people, but other times, once they get their hands dirty, they see the value instantly. What are some of the new exciting things that are coming down the pike for Semrush?
So since we're publicly traded, I can't share any really specific sneak peeks into things we haven't announced yet. But I can say a couple of things. One is that there are definitely some very cool improvements and new features that are coming soon that I'm really excited about. I wish I could share. And then another thing is that we have the Semrush App Center now, and this is a really cool thing we've started doing. It's a marketplace where people can find paid and free marketing tools from all sorts of developers. It's kind of like the Apple App Store, except it's completely focused on marketers, and it's not limited to mobile devices either. So anyone listening should definitely check that out. You can find that at semrush.com/apps.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan that there's so much noise in the world anymore, especially with media, social media, everything in between, that sometimes it's hard to cut through. So when you can bring so much value in one-stop shop for most patrons, that's amazing. So more power to you guys.
Thanks so much, BJ.
All right, Kyle, I've appreciated our time today. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, I implore you, check out Semrush, Semrush, and find out how you can leverage your business utilizing that to above your competition for market research, to really put yourself ahead. And the ever-changing landscape of technology is going to keep pushing. It's not going to stop. So having a power tool like Semrush in your back pocket is key to success. Kyle, thank you so much.
Thanks. Great chat.